What's going on, YouTube? I really gotta stop saying that. I gotta come up with a new intro. But today is day 5 of riding my dirt bike every single day for 30 days straight. Unfortunately, completely rained out. There's no tracks open. I went to a sand track yesterday. I'm not gonna repeat the same thing twice. So that leaves me with an opportunity to kind of give you guys a story time about some of my worst injuries. I get this comment like pretty often on mainly TikTok, but YouTube sometimes and Instagram sometimes, like, do I ever crash? Have I ever gotten hurt? So I figured it's the perfect time now that we have like a rainy day to kind of give you guys a little rundown. Now I've had about 5 or 6 major injuries over the course of my like amateur and professional career. Well, I've had more, but I'll give you guys like the top 5 like worst ones that I've been through. Some are pretty embarrassing too, so especially number 5. So we'll start with number 5. I have broken my thumb on a sight lap during practice at a Loretta Lynn's regional, nonetheless. It was at Baja Acres actually, for a regional for like the 450B class. And when I say regional, I'm talking about Loretta Lynn's regional for those that don't know. It was at a Loretta Lynn's regional at Baja. I've been practicing all day, done like 3 or 4 practices. I knew the track, right? It wasn't like I really needed to take a sight lap, but it was like the first lap of the last practice. Track was pretty rough, so I decided I'd go slow to try and be smart, and I ended up here. We'll take the hood off. I decided to be smart, take a sight lap, and I came into a corner with like a really shallow kind of rut and going super slow. I don't know if I could have been going any slower, and I just did like one of those slow-mo, like tuck the front, something like something you do in like the pits, right? Tucked the front, put my hand down weird, and broke my thumb, I think clean through. I can't remember exactly what type of break, but I had like 3 pins, and I had 3 pins for about 6 weeks. Pretty basic. It wasn't anything bad, but that's, you know, I'd consider that top 5 because I've had surgery on it. So as minor as it was pretty embarrassing and pretty just like frustrating. So we'll put that at number 5. Number 4 would be a ACL tear in my left leg that I suffered at Loretta Lynn's actually. First lap, first moto of the week in the schoolboy class, schoolboy 2, because I was racing schoolboy 1, which is 125s, and schoolboy 2, which is 250s. So it was schoolboy 2 was up first, really early in the morning. I don't know if it was actually first moto, but it was first moto for me of the week. Early morning, like 9 a.m. Got like a decent start. I was like 5th or 6th actually, and came together, just lines came together in like the 3rd or 4th corner. It was like 2 corners before the 10 commandments. If you know Loretta's, you know what I'm talking about. It was a left-hander. Came together with another rider and just dabbed my leg weird. And when I got up, I felt my leg like wiggle a little bit, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't really have any pain initially, but I knew something wasn't right. So I pulled in, went back, regrouped. I was walking around like my knee wasn't swollen, nothing. I was like, I must have just got a stinger. My moto was already over. Like whatever. We'll regroup for schoolboy 1. So I attempt to go out for schoolboy 1 later that day. And on the sight lap for schoolboy 1, these sight laps really get me, but on the sight lap for schoolboy 1, I come into the corner after the corner that I got hurt in, the corner before the 10 commandments, and it's on the opposite side. It was my left leg, but I was turning right. I don't know how I dabbed my left leg, but I dabbed it, and I felt this super sharp pain, and I just felt my knee swell up immediately, and I was like, yeah, that's probably not great. At the time I was 15, 16. No, I was 15. That was that basically. Tore my ACL clean through. Tore my meniscus a tiny bit. I believe I don't know what they did to my meniscus, if they shaved it or like what they did. But I had torn meniscus and a torn ACL. 5-month regroup. I know it's normally like 6 to 9 months for an ACL. I was really grinding PT. So I was back at like 4.5, 5 months back riding, but that one was really frustrating again because it was to do with Loretta's, and when you're a kid racing amateur motocross, Loretta's is like the biggest thing in the world. Like nothing else matters to you when you're 15 years old racing. than Loretta Lynn's. So that was absolutely devastating. Now, number 3 is where things get kind of gnarly. It was January 1st, 2019? No, 2018. I was getting ready to get my Supercross license. So I was training full-time on Supercross. I had to go through, like back then you had to go through like the Supercross Futures program, and then you had to do a specific number of arena cross and get like, I think you had to get 6 total points. I don't know, the system was really whack then. It still is kind of whack, but I had to go through it. So I was training Supercross, and back then I only had like one mod bike, and it was my race bike. And for me, I was the same height. I was 18 or 19. I was a full-grown adult already. I was pretty big for a 250. I'm a big person in general, but I was really big for a 250. And my mod 250, like my race bike, I could barely get like the 3-ins and stuff on that. So I feel comfortable saying this now, but I felt guilty about it back then. But my practice bike was a big bore because we couldn't afford to run like race gas and put a full-blown like identical race and practice bike program together. So my practice bike was a big bore 270, so I could get like the 3-ins on Supercross because I was so big. Like a stock 250, I just couldn't do it. I could not. I had to like double all the rhythms, and it like I was barely making the Supercross triples. It was just horrendous. But as some of you may know, a big bore is like basically putting a ticking time bomb underneath you. So it was January 1st. I was out practicing Supercross at Zach Bell's old location. I believe it was called Amex Park back then. It was a pretty worn down Supercross anyways. It wasn't like spec or anything, but it was the only track open on January 1st. And me being the competitor that I was like, man, I need to get out, get an edge on everybody. It was a super cold day. I remember it was really, really cold, like 40 or 50 degrees. No one was there besides myself and my mom. And it was the last moto of the day. I would believe I was doing sprints in 1:15. And during the 15-minute moto at the end, I come over the Supercross triple like this. I'm talking like I had 3 laps to go. I come over the Supercross triple, and the bike just goes, yo, and just locks up and literally like basically explodes. Not like really, but you know what I mean, like the engine just burst into pieces. And I land super nose heavy, like basically doing the stoppy landing, like full on haney dip, like vertical, landing on my nose. It could have been way worse. I got extremely lucky, but land super front heavy and just do like the known something you'd see in like a cartoon or something where it's like a super exaggerated like tank slap on the front wheel and then just cartwheel. And I remember I got up and I knew immediately. I moved my shoulders like, oh, yep, broke my collarbone. I was like, all right. We just left the bike there. There was nobody at the track, nobody, nothing. Just left the bike on the track, blown up. Drove to the hospital with my mom, and the minute like I got like the adrenaline kind of wore off and I sat down in the truck to get to the hospital, I felt my back was just like on fire. So went to the hospital, got the scans, x-rays, MRI. I can't remember what we did. But I broke, I think 3 wings, like vertebrae, wing things on my upper part of my back. I don't remember what the exact injury was. Somebody down in the comments could probably figure that out for me, or I'm just completely oblivious to it. But I broke a couple vertebrae in my back and snapped my collarbone, like shattered it in like 3 spots, 2 or 3 spots. But thankfully, I was back riding in like 3.5 weeks. Got the collarbone plated, back, you can't really do nothing, and the brakes weren't super bad. So those healed up on their own. Collarbone was good in like 3 weeks, and within like 3.5, 4 weeks, I was back riding Supercross. It was a pretty gnarly crash, but it could have been way, way worse. Like the outcome was probably as good as it could have been for grenading your bike on a Supercross triple. Number 2 was pretty recent. About a year ago, I'm coming up, it'd be on September 14th, so I'm coming up on a year exactly of the injury date. But I shattered my foot into a bazillion pieces on this one. It's not as embarrassing as breaking my thumb, but it's pretty embarrassing. So this was last year, right? I had just started riding ramps. I borrowed a ramp from my buddy Hunter, and he was nice enough to just literally loan me the ramp all summer long. Didn't ask for a dime, didn't ask for anything other than like, just take care of it, and when you get it back, or when you're done with it, just, you know, let me know, I'll come pick it up. probably one of the nicest dudes I've ever met. And I believe at the time his girlfriend's father was sick and they were trying to do like a car show slash like FMX ramp demo thing to raise money. And I was like, sure, like of course I'll be there, I'll come ride. And it was to an airbag. I had never ridden an airbag in my entire life. But I seen all these other riders doing it and I'm like, surely it can't be that hard, right? I get there, it takes forever to set the airbag up. Like it's kind of, like something just didn't feel right. You know when you go to the track and something just doesn't feel right? This taught me to trust my gut. Anyways, I didn't really want to back out because I felt bad. I didn't want to tell Hunter that. I didn't want to be like, no, dude, like I'm not comfortable. When in reality, like I probably should have just trusted my gut and figured out another way to help him. Anyways, we get the airbag set up. We're, you know, getting the ramp set up. And I told him, I was like, hey, set it at like 45 feet. Set it at something very like chill. Something I can just hit and just go right over and see how the bag feels. Well, we set it at 45 feet. Ramp was fine. Everything was good. And I just must have been a little bit too excited. I come in, over jump it just the tiniest bit, maybe like 5 or 6 feet. I go like semi deep, not really. Like if I was on dirt, I wouldn't have even thought twice. But nobody told me on like these airbags that you're supposed to let off. When you land, you don't land with the throttle on, otherwise it's gonna spit you out. Well, me being the unexperienced like ramp guy that I was, I landed with the throttle on and it just shot me out like a cannon, like full on loop out. I put my right foot out to like save me from crashing. And the fork, the way the bike fell, the fork landed right on my foot and basically like crushed it. So like here's the fork and it just kind of like basically punched my foot into the ground. And I got up, I took a step and immediately knew like my foot something wasn't right. But the minute I took my boot off, I felt my foot, like you could see the bones moving in my foot. It's pretty messed up. So devastated, one, because I couldn't believe that something like that had taken me out that gnarly. And two, I was on a roll all summer long. Like I felt the best I'd ever felt on a dirt bike in my entire life. And for something like that to take me down, I was pretty devastated. So I ended up going to the hospital, stayed in the hospital for a couple days, had surgery. It was a Lisfranc fracture. So my whole foot had to be like fused together. I was told it'd be like a 4 to 6 month recovery. And I had surgery September 17th. And I put my foot back in a boot like Thanksgiving week. So it was like 2.5 months. I did a little tiny bit of riding for a small photo shoot I had to do. But that one was pretty gnarly just because of the timing and like what actually, like the size of the injury compared to like the size of the jump. It really wasn't that gnarly of anything besides the crash was like pretty bad. Now, number one is the gnarliest injury I've ever had by far. And it happened when I was 16. So this was a little like less than a year after my ACL. This is the following year at a Lorettalands Regional at south of the border. Again, final moto of the weekend for me. Final lap, battling for like 3rd place-ish in the Schoolboy 2 class. And I was battling with a rider that's like pretty notorious for, you know, cross jumping and like being kind of like to race against. And it was last lap, last moto. Come over this jump, comes out of this corner, looks to his left, I'm on his left, and it just goes right into me. Like we're hitting this jump, he goes like this, and like basically takes my line, but takes my front wheel while he's taking my line. And I cartwheel, and I go to get back up, and I immediately see that my femur's like snapped, right? Like my leg is twisted the other way. Mind you, I'm 16 at this point. Like I just got over an ACL. I'm like freaking out. So they load me up in the ambulance, take me to a strip club parking lot, fly me, like life helicopter out of the strip club parking lot to the local hospital. I get surgery that afternoon. This is where all the bad things happen. So usually a femur, they put a rod in you and then the next day they get you up on your feet. With the rod in your femur, you're able to like actually weight bear on it. But the surgeon had botched the surgery so bad on my femur that the bones weren't connected. I had what they call a butterfly fracture, so I like spiraled. The bones weren't connected at all. There's just a rod like through my leg with no bone connected to it, basically, on, you know, right at the fracture site. It was just open. which was pretty gnarly. And obviously we didn't really know. We were told like that's standard practice for this type of fracture, blah, blah, blah. Come to find out, I went through the ringer. I was in the hospital for a month straight. In that hospital specifically for a month straight. I dealt with infection, I dealt with blood clots, I dealt with the whole 9 yards. They were talking about amputation from the hip down at one point if the infection got deep enough. So I had to have like a PICC line put in my arm all the way to the top of your heart. Registered antibiotics like every 8 hours for a month or 2 straight. Thankfully, we had a surgeon go back in, and I'm giving you guys a short story because there's so much more to this, but surgeon in Tallahassee went back in, basically took like hose clamps that you see on like hoses for like a radiator hose or whatever. You take a hose clamp and you clamp my bones together so they'd stay together, so they'd heal. So I had like hose clamps around my bone, a bunch of hardware, a bunch of a rod. Like the rod that was originally put in, they had to take out, put a new rod in because it was the wrong length. It's like the whole thing. And the worst part was the infection. I dealt with that infection, I want to say 2 years. So my leg had healed after I got the correct surgery. My leg had healed in 6 months. I went back to riding, racing, but never felt normal. I was always like deathly white and thin, and like, I just felt like crap. And come to find out, that original infection from the first surgery was still in my blood for 2 years. And we actually ended up finding that out because I had a growth grow on the side of my leg that was just like a pocket of pus and infection. So they had to go back in 2 years later, clean me out, strip me and rid me of all the infection. I had to get another PICC line put in, deal with antibiotics for another month or 2. It was super gnarly. I would not wish that on anybody else. And I know I'm still very fortunate, and knock on wood that, you know, I continue to be fortunate with injuries because this is a dangerous sport and things do happen. But yeah, that's like a short version of that injury that was super gnarly. But there you guys go. There's like a top 5 rundown of my worst injuries. So now you guys don't have to wonder or question that. A lot of riders have way worse injuries and they just don't ever like talk about them. So I figured with today being a rain day, we might as well go ahead and take advantage of it. But if you've made it this far, make sure you like and subscribe and drop a comment down below if you're curious on anything I went over in this video. I'm happy to respond to any questions you guys might have about injuries, or if you're going through one that's similar to this, I'd be happy to answer and help you guys out with anything I can. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys tomorrow.